Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Core Women Podcast. Today, I am joined by Hanan Harb Sahourieh, a writer, consultant, and learning marketing strategist with 2 decades of experience. Inspired by classic workplace comedies like 9 to 5 and Office Space, Hanan brings her humor, heart, and actionable wisdom to the world of workplace dynamics. Her book, Everybody Be Cool, democratizes leadership principles and personal growth tools, making them accessible to everyone, not just those at the top. With her expertise featured in top industry publications and partnerships with organizations like UKG and Palo Alto University, Hanan's work delivers real change and inspiration. Welcome, Hanan.
Hi, Summer. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Before we dive into your professional evolution, if you could describe your journey in one word to this point, what would that word be and why?
Good question. I would say the word would be learning. I feel like we're always learning, and I know I'm always learning and adapting. And I think that just keeping that mindset, that growth mindset, has been really helpful for me, and being open to learning what I don't know. And life is a journey, and we have to just really be open to what it's going to teach us and where we're going to go with it, and not just have this finite idea of, oh, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then I'm going to go here. Just being open to what you're going to learn, who you're going to meet, and where life is going to take you, I feel like has served me well in my life up to, the 42 years that I've been here. And I'm going to continue to have that growth mindset and wanting to learn until the very end.
Absolutely. I love that. And I believe that we continue to self-actualize up into the very end as well, and that's just learning and being open, more importantly, being open to embracing learning. You've been inspired by workplace comedies, and I love this in your bio, like 9 to 5 and Office Space, and that they both are witty comedies. But how have these stories shaped your perspective on workplace dynamics over the years? Because movies also had an impact on my perception of leadership, what that looked like. One of my favorites was Working Girl.
I love Working Girl. That's exciting. It's good to see that I'm in good company here.
You are.
I think for me, television and movies, they shaped a lot of my understanding of the world, especially if it was something that I didn't have too much information about, like the workplace. I was, a little bit confused and didn't have much to go on other than what I've seen in pop culture. So being an English literature major and having these, kind of very theoretical skills, and coming into different workplaces and trying to navigate them and understand them without, necessarily having, some people might have family members that say, okay, when I was in the office, this is what I did. I didn't really have that. And I'm sure a lot of people could relate. And my dad was Mr. Softy, which you might be familiar with on the East Coast, ice cream salesman in a truck. So, when we don't necessarily have that background, and then you're kind of plopped into the workplace, you just have your perceptions in media or conversations you've had with people about the politics and how to kind of get ahead in the workplace. So that was really my basis is, Office Space and The Office, and even, modern representations like Succession. That's
Yeah.
my comfort show. I watch that to put me to sleep sometimes. And I just find like the group dynamics and the power associated with it really fascinating, That's what I would defer to when I would be confused or not really understand, when I had a lot of learning to do about the workplace and how to feel more comfortable in my own skin and my own roles in the workplace and the dynamics.
I love that. That makes me think about my own history. And when I look at how I gathered information and the way I viewed it, and from what lens early on was MTV,
Yeah.
for me. And they started providing news about the world, about the US and their interpretation. Then I moved on to movies as well, like you, 9 to 5, Working Girl. Yeah, you actually have a great point there. What was our first perception of these workplace environments?
Mhm.
Through pop culture, through movies, and maybe not each of our parents worked in those type of spaces. Mine didn't to that degree, and yet I had a grandfather who was an entrepreneur, but I was like, is every company run this way? The way that we pick up these ideas about things is so interesting. So thank you for describing how that started early on for you. And then that led into your career transition into more learning and development through your evolution, where you found leadership programs often rooted in personal growth and spirituality. What inspired you to make these same tools accessible through your programs to everyone and not just top leaders? Tell me more about that.
So my lens has always been very power to the people. I like things to be as equal as they can. So when I started seeing things in the leadership development programs that I felt could be useful to everybody, I just started making notes of, oh, wow, in this leadership program, they are encouraging introspection, they're encouraging connection with the cohorts. They're encouraging journaling. I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's all journal. These are things that I feel like everybody could use. So I felt like the leadership development programs that I saw were promoting self actualization, which is amazing and very kind of new, and a lot of coaching and a lot of language from therapy, but more, instead of looking in the past, looking in the now, and just really these wonderful tools that everybody could benefit from. So that really got me thinking about ways that learning and development in the workplace mixed with personal development, how it could benefit everybody, no matter if you're an individual contributor, a manager, a leader, a CEO. Everybody could show up to work with these skills and it would improve everything if people were more tuned in with themselves, had better communication skills, had better self regulation, and just showed up to work ready to focus more on the work rather than all the inner grumblings that go on with people when they're not regulated and they're not checking in with themselves and they're having issues that go unaddressed.
I absolutely love that. Even working in the field of mental health and human services for years, I've never had our agencies or our hospitals ever bring in journaling into the boardroom.
Right.
Never. And so to hear that is exciting,
Mm-hmm.
because even working in the mental health field, to have those types of things integrated into our everyday experiences is so important, because we need outlets. I mean, we're dealing with people who are suicidal, homicidal, gravely disabled in high crisis situations, but yet those that work for the company or the entity aren't necessarily doing the self work to help them self regulate throughout the day. And so we get more reactive versus responsive behavior because people are worn out, they're tired, they're not talking, they're building up silos, they're not looking at their wellness. And I love hearing that you've experienced that. That's beautiful. And thank you for mentioning that, because I think just hearing that, it's like, boom, enlightenment, right? Like, hello, folks. More of us need to be doing this, right? Actually putting our practice into practice with the people that work in that organization, not just asking others to do that same kind of work that we're working with as clients.
Right. Absolutely. It could be the people that are going around and delivering the trainings and the experts in the field that it's hard to practice what you preach.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because when I was going to get my master's, there were some people in there who were like, yeah, I'm not going to go to counseling, but we were learning how to be counselors. And I was like, well, why? Why aren't you experiencing what it feels like on the other side of that desk or that, on the couch or whatever it is? They just didn't want to do it. I'm like, how is that even possible? And let me tell you, I did partake in my own therapy and counseling, and just because it was necessary, because I was doing individual groups, couples, and I wanted to know, how does this feel? What is this experience? How can I do better? Right? Not
Right.
just for them, but for myself as well. Anyway, you have a book, and your book is called Everybody Be Cool. It blends humor and actionable advice. What was the biggest challenge in writing this book, and what impact do you hope it has for the reader?
Yeah. So the biggest challenge I think was reining myself in. I think when you just have your computer and yourself and you're trying to hold yourself accountable and have something that isn't just a manifesto, but something that you want to be applicable and relatable to your readers. So inserting my experience like a little bit, but really centering the reader. So that kind of push and pull, and just really reining myself in to make it something that I would want to read. Because I know in the past, when I've read business books, that's the fastest way for me to go to sleep. Like, no offense to them, it puts me to sleep. And so I wanted it to be something that was a little bit fun, a little bit different, got people to think about their own life, and that they could make their own with some lessons from experts, from people in my network, from authors and thought leaders in different areas of life, but really just got people thinking and got people applying the lessons and the goals that they had for themselves to really take their lives and careers and make it what they wanted to be.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going back to something that you had mentioned earlier. You were an English lit major,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah.
I was an English lit major in undergrad as well.
Ooh, hello.
Yes, hello. So we have that in common. And so you've read a lot of books and we've analyzed these books. We've taken into consideration what these books are trying to tell us in regards to actionable items, but also the experience that you have as you're reading it. And that's something that you touched on. You want to make this an experience. And I love that you bring humor into the book. I love that you also make this an experience for people to reflect on, to be able to move forward maybe with some different ideas and tips and such to be able to grow, continue to grow. And that's exciting. I love books that are developed in that way because you're not nodding out. Like you, I've read a lot of books and they're even, I'm going to say this out loud. I had to do a thesis on Dickens. And although I love Dickens, every one of his books was like 7 to 1,200 pages long. And I'm like, holy majoli, like I can only take so much of Dickens, right?
So many words.
So many words, so many words. And I don't think it has to be so many words to get a point across or to get an experience across or to help you integrate an experience. So tell us more about the development of the chapters of the books and maybe point out a couple of things that people can take away from reading this book.
Sure. To your point and the too many words, I wanted to get the point across in a succinct way, in a way that was engaging and entertaining and got people thinking. But I also wanted it to be realistic. Our attention spans aren't what they used to be. So I have takeaways at the end of each chapter so people can skim. And then at the end of each chapter, there's also a self reflection activity so that they can read the lessons and read the quotes from different experts and thought leaders that I interviewed for the book or that I'm quoting from different books, and then apply it to themselves. Usually when people are working at a company, their career development or their performance review is owned by the company. But I wanted to set the book up in a way that not only is it kind of like a fun, thought provoking read, but it gave people the autonomy to own their career development, no matter what organization they were at. so that they could kind of bring that over with them. If, say, they were at one organization for a decade, then they started a new career and started a whole new performance review conversation. And I've been part of creating and updating performance reviews for companies. At somebody that's gone through it, it's always a stressful, nerve-wracking thing, but I wanted to give people a way to own it and to make it a little bit fun and more self-directed than, okay, your manager's there and your bonus is attached and your salary's attached and they're going to tell you if you're a good girl or a bad girl. And
Yeah.
this is your own career. This is your own life. Don't let so many years go by because you're just kind of on the hamster wheel and you're not really thinking about it yourself. So that's really what I hope to do with the structure of the book as it is, and the takeaways and the self-reflection and the fun.
I can really appreciate this, and especially the focus on providing that autonomy
Mhm.
or writing in a way that people had the autonomy to take this book and make it their own,
Right.
to develop their own leadership skills and style. Because a lot of times we are being told what to do, how to do it, and we separate from that autonomy.
Yep.
And I think a resource like this can be so helpful because you can regain your power, feel more empowered, feel more inspired. So thank you for writing such a book. You've had 20 years of experience in learning, marketing, and consulting. What trends do you see shaping workplace dynamics, and how can leaders balance humor and heart in organizations to spark real change?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that I really tackle in chapter 1. The lesson is be aware of your surroundings.
Hmm.
And as I talk about kind of being plopped into the workplace without necessarily understanding what came before me, I feel like it's so important to understand the past, understand the business books that came out in the different decades, how those shape the different generations. And I talk about the 5 generations in the workplace currently.
Hmm.
And the next 2 are Gen Alpha, and they just released Gen Beta, which is
Yes.
basically newborns and babies.
Yep.
So, yeah, they have their work cut out for them, but I feel like the trends, obviously people are talking about technology and AI, but I feel really passionate about humanity and communication and conflict resolution, and I feel like no AI, no technology can replace those. This is our competitive advantage against AI, against technology, that I feel like we need to lean into that and keep honing those skills and putting the emphasis on that, because the way you speak to people, the way you speak to clients, the way you make people feel, your colleagues, your team members, that makes or breaks a workplace or a project, somebody's day. I can't emphasize that enough of how important it is to lean into those skills, what they used to call soft skills,
Hmm.
but I like to call power skills because they are so powerful. All the emotional intelligence and just really focusing on those. And yes, understand the technology, understand what's coming, understand how that affects your landscape, but don't push off the power skills just because there's so many different technological advancements coming out.
Yeah, I love that because it is so important to be heart centered in
Mhm.
what we do versus letting everything else infiltrate that. I guess for me, it distances us from humanity.
Mhm.
And I think we have that enough. We have it through technology. Even as we meet here, I'm glad we have the technology because it has helped during so many transitions and changes, but there still has to be that heart connection.
Absolutely.
And let's not lose it. So I love the reminder. So thank you so much. We have covered a lot of ground here today, Hanan. So as we come to the close of the interview, what is one tip you would give to someone who feels stuck in a traditional workplace dynamic and wants to foster personal and professional growth?
I would say connect. Connect with yourself, understand what you want, understand what you can do to foster those skills. Is it a training? Is it reading? There's so many options there. But aside from yourself, connect with your network. I think that's been huge for me, connecting with people on LinkedIn like yourself and like the people that I interviewed for my book, some of whom have become great friends, and we encourage each other and we bounce ideas off of each other. And reach out, have a coffee talk with someone you used to work with, have a connection call with somebody who you're interested in, and just see where those conversations go, because you never know what opportunity comes from that. So just be open to that and keep connecting.
Well, thank you, Hanan, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It has been a delight. You can follow Hanan Harb Sahourieh on LinkedIn at Hanan Harb Sahourieh, on Instagram at hanan.everybody.be.cool, and at www.everybody-be-cool.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women Podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.